grasshoppers or any small flying insects. In South Africa, it's also known as the springbok bird because it's the colours. It'll come back. There we go. It's the colours of our rugby team. Green and gold all the way. It's also known as the springbok bird because of its habit of sort of ducking down and then popping back up, kind of like a springbok pronking. Yes, is it a little bit wet in the grass, little bee-eater? I think so. Preening its feathers. Every time it ducks down, it probably gets covered in dew. Oh my goodness. James would like to know what solitary birds become gregarious in winter. Sure. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to think about that. Little bee-eaters are not solitary. They live together in small groups. What solitary birds become gregarious in winter? Well, I guess you could say, James, that the build-up to the migration would be a situation where solitary birds, although they're not really solitary, are they? Because they come here in summer to breed. So they form their monogamous pairs. Things like, it'll come back, I hope. European, there we go. European bee-eaters, tawny Wahlberg's eagles, I suppose they're still in pairs, so they're not quite solitary. They will group together before the migration, and they'll all migrate together in a group. I'm going to think about this seriously, but I'm going to rush you across to Taylor while I do, because she has a bird that might disappear.
We've got a bearded woodpecker, and it is so beautiful. It is a female bearded woodpecker. The males have got the white sort of crown, not the white, the red crown on their heads, so that's one of the ways you can tell them apart. Now, I always think that trying to tell woodpeckers apart is quite difficult. However, the bearded woodpecker does the most amazing thing, and I'm hoping that it's going to do it again, and I hope that you've all got your volumes turned up as we anticipate this behavior. But they are doing their territory. Here we go, listen. How cool is that? Did you hear that? And did you see her doing that? Let's see if she does it again, and then I'll tell you why she's doing it. That is amazing. And we are so close to this woodpecker too. I can't believe it hasn't flown away. So that, like I said earlier, very briefly mentioned, is the territorial call. And as you can see, it's not made sort of by the bird vocally. It's a sort of a physical response as it bashes its beak onto the wood, creating the most unbelievable sound. Now, if I were to bang my head up against that tree, I'd find myself in a lot of trouble. I would be concussed. This is so cool. But, of course, woodpeckers have got the most amazing adaptation with their tongue, and it actually helps protect their frontal lobe. So that's why they don't get a headache or a concussion, like you and I would. And if you remember, James actually dissected a woodpecker in the tent. Can you remember how amazing that was? It was quite gross as well, but really spectacular to actually see what that entire muscle looked like. Perhaps you can share some of those screenshots with all of us. Hashtag Safari Live with your pictures, if you remember that. I'm not sure if it was from a TV show or if it was just one of our normal shows, but it was really quite spectacular. And I know there would be lots of new viewers that would like to see that. Now, I wonder why she's calling like this. Perhaps she's looking for a mate. They are monogamous, and they do nest in trees like this. Maybe she's living here, and she's wondering why her husband has not come home yet, so she's summoning him. I'm not really sure, but she's just, as the red-billed hornbill was enjoying the sun, so is she. She's taking this opportunity in between making an announcement and of course warming herself up and preening her beautiful feathers. I have not seen a bearded woodpecker for quite some time, so I hope that you love this little girl just as much as I did. They're beautiful birds, and to get them to sit still like this is very, very lucky. So there we go, another bird to your list. Now Jamie, again, we're still doing the little birding challenge this morning, and she has got one of the other hornbills.
I was looking for the ground hornbills, but we found a grey hornbill in stead. I was going to say it's calling. Well done, Sens. See? Told you Senzo can follow a bird in flight. It was doing its beautiful whistling call, and apart from the ground hornbill, the prettiest hornbill bird call that I can think of is the grey hornbill. It sort of goes... I'll try get it on camera for you once again. We're still looking for our ground hornbill anyway. I'm so glad that Taylor showed you the bearded woodpecker, because that was the woodpecker that I wanted to show you this morning, but it flew away. So I'm thrilled that between the two of us, we've actually really set off and achieved several goals at once this morning. It's been a fantastic morning, considering we've been battling off the gremlins from start to finish. So if you were a ground hornbill and you'd been here, which way would you go? I'm thinking. I think they're going to go... Oh, a grey hornbill's calling, but it's a little bit far. I'll try it one more time. I'll try to get it on camera. It's got such a beautiful call. So the only one we're actually missing off our list from here is the trumpeter hornbill. The trumpeter hornbill sounds like a baby crying. It goes wee, wee, wee. Sounds exactly like that. One of the few bird calls I can actually do. And I've only seen them twice on Djuma, and both times just didn't quite get them on camera. They do occasionally pass over. They prefer the slightly more forested riverine areas. Okay, the ground hornbills should be here too somewhere. But now they're going to be, now that it's warm and the grass has dried off a little bit, they're going to be on the ground. So I need to grow several inches in height. There's our grey hornbill sends. Just land in the top there. Maybe it'll call for us to get lucky. Up a little bit. There we go. Brilliant. Well done. Let's see if it'll call. You can tell me whether or not my grey hornbill impression was accurate. I think it is going to call. First, a bit of morning grooming. Nice for us to just sit in the sun as well. Thaw out the extremities. Come on, grey hornbill. And while we wait for our grey hornbill to call, and I promise, here it goes. Could you hear that, Megan? Yay, awesome. Here we go. The grey hornbill calling away. We get so used to the cock, 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 cock of the yellow-billeds and the red-billeds. It's nice to hear a grey hornbill call. Anna Marie, you want to know if there's any difference between the... Oh, that's very pretty. Between the three smaller species of hornbill that we see other than their bill colour. The answer to that is not a major difference. They have very, very similar social structures, monogamous pairs. Sensor, sorry. There's a lilac-breasted roller posing so nicely for us up there that I just have to draw attention to it. It's so beautiful in the sunlight. Oh, goodness, look at that. So vibrant, I almost need to shield my eyes from the colours. That's so beautiful. Not hard to see where a lilac-breasted roller gets its name from. As Anna-Marie, sorry, the largest one is the yellow-billed hornbill of the three that we see regularly. And probably in terms of if there's foraging to be done, feeding off the same thing, probably the most dominant. I've seen them chase away both grey and red-billed. That is a beautiful lilac-breasted roller. Now, R. Ryan Moore, you say crazy colours. I agree. We can do a quick count of them. We've got the royal blue and the turquoise and the lilac and the pink around the eye and the green and the brown and the sort of orangey yellow around the face and the bill. It's about 7 different colours. And bird pigments are fascinating. because they really only have a mixture of reds and yellows and blacks. Actually naturally occurring green colors and red colors. Sorry, not red, I meant yellow and orange pigments and black pigments. The rest of the colors are created by combining those pigments along with an overlay of keratin on the feathers that reflects the light in such a way that it creates this shimmer. And it's only really the Turacos that have naturally occurring red and green pigments. I'm really enjoying this morning. I'm having an absolute blast, and Taylor's had more luck this time of a relative of the birds.
Jamie, I wouldn't say more luck in comparison to all the animals that you've seen this morning. You've done a sterling job, but we've got something on the unusual side. It is a very small lizard of some sort. I'm actually not sure exactly what type of little lizard this is just yet, but it was having a fight with another little lizard, and we often see them moving around on the base of trees, so of course on knobthorn. Wow! Did you see that jump? Look, there we go. I think it's being chased, and that's why it leapt like that, or it was being the chaser. They really are quite funny to watch, these little lizards. My favorite ones, in fact, are actually rainbow skinks, when they get quite aggressive and they sort of do a death twist and they throw each other around. It's quite spectacular. But now I'm obviously not going to get out the car to show you how small this little guy is. Probably only the length of my littlest finger, because it will move away. But that camouflage, that cryptic camouflage, you can see so perfectly there. The vertical stripes going along its body, as well as a couple of little dots and spots, make it the most perfect way to camouflage itself up against a knobthorn. And I think knobthorn trees are great to house many different types of creatures. There's specific types of scorpions, Osteopacanthus asper, that specifically utilize knobthorn trees, and so do these little lizards. We see many different kinds moving around and inside the bark, and that's because the bark does lift up off of the tree. So those little grooves and crevices that you can see sort of just below it would make for a perfect getaway if something like a lizard buzzard or anything really, even a Wahlberg's eagle, whichever bird it may be, even a lilac-breasted roller, tries to snatch up this little guy. It doesn't really have to go too far before it can disappear underneath some of that bark. This is really nice. So I don't know if it's a male or a female just yet. It's obviously quite difficult to tell. But the fact that they were having a bit of a dispute earlier, maybe it makes me think that they're possibly two males, sort of just fending off their area, saying, hey, you get away, this is my spot. And I don't think that they've got particularly big territories, if you could even call them that. I think it'll just be a small area, and you can see he's quite happy. He's stayed on the same place the entire time. So I think that little crevice in there must be where it lives. It must be its personal home. And that's the greatest sunning spot too. And I'm sure it's taken it quite some time to figure out where the best spot is, which is the best spot of bark that gets the first of the sunlight. And I think that it has chosen very, very well. This won't stay here all day long, of course, this light, so it might have to move around a little bit. Because reptiles, as you know, they need to absorb heat directly from the sun or from another type of source. So either by sitting on the warm sand or sitting on a nice hot rock, and they'll be able to get all the lovely warmth. But how cool is that? Now, let's see if we're going to catch anything. Now, Rebecca, you're wondering if they are normally this small or if this is a young one. They're not particularly big. No, this is, if I'm not mistaken, I'm just trying to remember exactly which lizard this is. I don't think it's one of the skinks. It looks a little bit, maybe, no, I don't think it's a striped skink. I think it's something else. I've completely forgotten. I used to know what they were called, so I'll have to look at my little reptiles book. Actually, I have a book here which I might open and see if we can't find anything. But you see them all the time. They're everywhere all over South Africa, and particularly in this area on all of these trees. So you do see them a lot. Of course, you can get small lizards, as we've seen a number of times. Now, if you hear some strange noises, it's me paging through my book. I'm going to open it on reptiles. I don't actually have my proper reptile book with me. I've just got a sort of a multi-book here today. It's got a little bit of everything, but I don't know if it has got reptiles in it. We'll have to check. So I'm searching at the moment while you watch this little guy, and I'm hoping that this friend comes back so that we can watch a bit of a dispute. Like I say, I often used to sit and watch lizards fight, especially around the lodges, and I'll never forget the one day there were two rainbow skinks, two males competing for a female, and I took a slow motion video because they were throwing and thrashing each other around. It was really so spectacular that it was in the middle of the road that I even sort of cordoned off the area. I said, nobody come here, keep away, people try and drive vehicles in and out, and here's me. I made a little rock arena around them so that they were safe and that no one would drive over the top of them, because they were quite reluctant to move out of the road. As you can imagine, they were stuck in their ways. They were only focused on each other, like we see with all the other males. Now, what I wanted to show you before we leave is there's actually a crested barbet just sitting up and away from us, and he was calling earlier just up there. You can just see the bright yellow. It's so beautiful. And I was trying to decide who we were going to show first when we had the woodpecker or the crested barbet, and I thought, right, woodpecker wins, because I haven't seen a bearded woodpecker in such a long time, and she was putting on a good show, which was quite nice. So here we've got this beautiful crested barbet, also all fluffed up again, warming itself after the very nippy morning we have had today. And if it is living around here near the dam, you can imagine it would be a lot chillier. Now come on, do your call for us. It looks like it wants to. Looks like it's getting quite excited, feathers all peaked up, or maybe it's just the response because there's quite a few lilac-breasted rollers flying over the top of us. Megan, can we stay here for a bit longer, because there's quite a few little animals just starting to pop out now. Wonderful. Because James has also now set up the tent, by the way, so you'll have lots of laughs, I'm sure, from James in a moment when we go back to him. But what I have seen, and I want Ferg, if you can spot it with your eyes, can you see those squirrels? Just far away, there's that big tree just off to the left. We'll keep an eye out. There we go. Yes, a little bit. That one, the far back, perfect. You're in the middle of it. Just at the base, if you go straight in from there, it's quite far back where all those fallen bits of bark are. If you zoom in, I'll guide you to it. You can go a little bit to the right. No, not the other side, rather right. Yes. Now go up a bit more. There we go. On that tree at the back, there were some squirrels moving around. No, a little bit to the right. You were on it. You can just see them. There they are. They're the two squirrels, just down on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It looks like they're grooming each other at the moment, which is quite nice. I think also venturing out of their little holes. Now, most of the birds we've seen today, from the crested barbet to the bearded woodpecker, and well, oh, maybe they're not just grooming each other. That looks like they could be getting a bit more excited. Let's see how this plays out. But of course, the squirrels like to live in little holes and trees too, and again, and the knobthorns are so important for that. Yes, this one is now getting a good grooming. Can you see that? Maybe it's a youngster, and that's maybe mom, or maybe they're siblings. I'm not actually sure exactly what's going on here, but either way, one of them is receiving a good clean, and that can always be very embarrassing. We see it with lions, we see it with leopards. They don't want to be cleaned, and of course, well, squirrels are doing a similar thing today. But look how sort of meticulous this one's being, not leaving any piece of hair unturned. Even the little foot is now sort of moving, you know, sort of like when you find the best spot on a dog's tummy and you scratch it and your dog's feet move around like crazy. Look like that little squirrel was doing the same thing, and it seems to have gone into a trance now. Just sort of sitting patiently going, can we finish now? This is highly embarrassing. It actually does look like a little one. So maybe it is mom and juvenile. That's very sweet. And as you know, let me get all of that out. The squirrels are my nemesis, because I'm never able to put a squirrel on camera. It's the most difficult thing in the entire world, except when there's wild dogs. Then I find squirrels sitting very quietly, and it's always a toss-up between, do we show the wild dog or do we show the squirrel? And then remember the other day, I took your attention away from them because I had to show you. And well, today I don't need to do that, because these squirrels are just being so well behaved, which is fantastic. This is probably the longest squirrel sighting I've ever had in my entire life. Now, Jennifer, you've said that you find squirrels very interesting. They are indeed one of my favorite things to do, and if you're lucky enough to not have a squirrel spot you, is to actually just sit and watch them forage. And I was able to do that quite a bit in Zambia. We didn't have very many marula trees, but there were lots of Nyala berries, which almost look exactly like a jackalberry, and they also get a big fruit on them, and they loved those. And then they were collecting all sorts of other nuts and seed pods and things like that. And there were these big fallen anna trees all around the camp that the elephants had pushed over. The Latin name is Herbia albidea, and they are magnificent trees. They look like massive giant acacias, if anything, like a type of a knobthorn, if you will, but even thicker base, which is so spectacular. And there were just squirrels in every single one of them. And every morning, again, the same thing, because being so close to the Zambezi River, you can imagine it's quite chilly first thing in the morning. So all the birds out and sunning themselves, and so were the squirrels. And I would sit for hours and hours, and I'd get all the guests as well, and there they go, just sit and watch them, and they'd go about their days, alarm calling and all sorts of things, whether it was just males declaring their territories and then going off foraging for food, running back, sort of hiding them, seeing where they're stockpiling in different trees. It was really quite amazing to sit and watch them. So yes, you're quite right, Jennifer. They are indeed very precious to watch, and I'm so glad we got to see them. Now, Chris, you're wondering if that was a mating pair or a mother and a baby. I'm not so sure. Just was obviously quite an obstructed view, but from what it looked like there was quite a significant size difference. So I wonder if it wasn't a little one, a little juvenile and mom, perhaps getting a good clean like that. But they are quite sociable. So as you know, it's very important for animals out here to continuously strengthen the bond. And one of the ways you can do that, one of the easiest ways you can do that, is by grooming one another. And we see impala doing that. Again, we see leopards, lions, we see lots of different animals out here, even birds sort of allo grooming each other or allo preening each other. So very, very nice. I don't know, it was pretty cool. It was a pity we had a couple of those branches in the way, but it's just got me so excited now to find some more squirrels to sit and watch. It's almost like sitting and watching the dwarf mongoose, just the dwarf mongoose are a little bit more cooperative and tend to hang around for a bit longer. But again, that was the longest squirrel sighting I think I've ever had on screen, so wonderful. That's a great day. Squirrel sighting of the year. Hopefully we'll be able to improve it, of course. So we've moved away from the dam now, and just oh, hang on, who have we got here? Oh, there's just a bird that's just caught my attention up in the tops of the trees. It looked like a fork-tailed drongo, and it's just flown off. You may have seen its wings very, very quickly. The birds are fast. James is in the tent. He's got a beetle, and I'm sure he's going to put it under the microscope.
It's not a beetle, and I do greet you. Hello, good morning, and I'm sorry for my tardiness and being late today. Good. Now you know who I am. And I've been climbing up a tower trying to fix things. We were supposed to be on bushwalk today, Craig and I. Craig is on camera. Hello, Craig.
How are you doing?
That's Craig's very loud voice you can hear in the background there. And Craig found us our first object of the day, and I believe it to be something similar to what is called Homoeoceras auriculatus. That one, you see? But it is not the same. It is similar though, so it comes from the family Corridae, twig wilters, squash bugs and leaf-footed bugs. There it is, very nice. Excellent. Right, let's put it under the microscope because it's the most wonderful lime green colour. We are as live as Taylor and Jamie, although a very truncated version of our drive today, just an hour left. So hashtag Safari Live us if you would like to, and you can ask any questions or give us any comments. There we go. That there, everybody, is this bug that looks a little bit like Homoeoceras auriculatus. Has no common name. A leaf wilter, a twig wilter, squash bug, or leaf-footed bug. But isn't he lovely? He's got the most beautiful colours. And we'll just go to his backside now and see if we can focus in there. There we are. And I just love also his sapphire-coloured eyes. And as I said yesterday when we were fossicking around the tent, finding all sorts of interesting things, this time of the year great for looking at these insects and bugs, because just especially in the morning, a little bit too cold for them to be too excited. Craig thought it might be an assassin, but it isn't. It doesn't have the right proboscis. And so I think we're quite safe. But quite often these things smell very nasty. And so I don't think we're going to disturb him for too much longer. We'll let him escape quietly out into the wilderness. Off you go. Good luck with your life. Marvellous. Right. That was that one. Then I'm going to do some investigation as to that reptile that Taylor had. I have exactly the same problem she does. If you don't see these things on a continual basis, you forget entirely what they are. So I'll have a look and see if I can't find what that reptile was that she was looking at. And then we'll just have a look at this very pretty plant. There we go. Now this is the hare's tail plant. And I just want to show you, because when you look at it without, or, you know, if you look at it just sitting on its stalk, it looks like a soft and gentle thing. But if you try and clasp it, you can see these nasty, nasty spikes that are on it. And those spikes, I suspect, are there to protect it from being eaten while the seeds mature just before they're thrown to the wind. So they're obviously wind, the vector is wind. And you can see that by the little sort of feathered wings they have. But look at those beastly, beastly spikes. And they will cut you, well, to the quick. Very, very painful being spiked by those. And you can just see the pollen anthers there at the back. I think that's rather special. Good, so that is the hare's tail plant. Very, very spiky. Right, I'm going to just spike myself. Oh, this one doesn't have too many spikes. They're not mature yet. While I try and mature them, let's go across to Jamie, who has got something somewhere, and it's quite large.
Something somewhere. Well, the location can only be in a very limited area, but it's certainly been a lucky morning for us. We've had hyena, wild dogs, and now a giraffe enjoying her breakfast. And I say we're very lucky because we actually go through stages where we hardly ever see giraffe. And when we do see them, I'm very grateful indeed. I remember how a couple of days ago I said to you I saw a very, very, very pregnant giraffe on quarantine. I don't think this is her, but I also don't think that this giraffe is alone. I think she is one of a few. The others are just out of sight for now. And I'm really hoping that the pregnant giraffe stays around in this area so that we have a chance to see her. She's much darker than this female, and I'd recognize her if I saw her again, purely by virtue of the fact that her belly is bulging all the way almost down to her elbows. Oh, changed her mind. I thought she was going to stretch up to those leaves over there, perhaps even give us a demonstration of the length of a giraffe's tongue, which is exceptionally long and really quite nimble, which is very useful when you're reaching up to grasp leaves above your head, I imagine. Easily 30 centimeters in length. Here comes the second sensor, a younger one. That is just off to the left, where that tree is in the left part of your frame. There we go. I thought I saw branches moving. There's a much younger giraffe, just purely in terms of height and also looking at its ossicones, which are the horns on the top of its head. They're very thin and small, and its neck is still slightly disproportionately short when compared to a fully grown giraffe. And babies are born like that so that they can actually reach under their mothers to suckle. Now, their necks are shorter when compared to the rest of their body size than they might otherwise be. But they've got to have long legs because they've got to be able to keep up with mum. So nature's solved that problem by giving them short-ish. I mean, everything's relative when you're talking about a giraffe, but short-ish necks when they're born. And speaking of the birthing process, not an easy thing for a young giraffe. It's got a 2-meter drop as its welcome to the world, because the females do not often, and they do occasionally, but they don't often lie down when they give birth. I'm going to catch up with our giraffe, but Taylor's succeeding on her birding mission. Let's go see what she's found for you now.
We're actually not doing too badly this morning. These ones were spotted by Ferg, so all the credit goes to him. And they are a pair of African Hoopoe. And they are beautiful, busy probing around, looking for all sorts of delicious morsels to feast upon. And I'm sure, after all of the rain that we've had, you might find a lot of the worms, like an earthworm or so, any of the other grubs that are living below the surface of the ground, coming up towards, well, the top. As with all that rain, the ground must be quite saturated and waterlogged. And normally we see that when the earthworms coming out, when their burrows have all been flooded. But that's actually one thing we don't see too often is earthworms. And I remember down in the Eastern Cape we used to get these, I think they were called mountain earthworms, but they were massive. They were almost the length of my forearm. They were so big. And they would have made for the most tastiest treats, like a long piece of spaghetti, maybe linguine, a little bit more thicker, for a hardy-dar, or even, of course, something like this, a hoopoe, anything that really probes the ground, searching for food. But they are lovely birds, the hoopoes, and it's so nice to still see them hidden away in the long grass. Where's the other one? Flew away. Or is it still there? I don't actually even know where Ferg has spotted them. I'm trying to search for them with my eyes, and it is proving to be quite difficult to actually see them with the naked eye. So very, very well spotted from you. But it's not the only bird that's on the ground, as you saw. And the two hoopoes, just to the one on the left, there's also a crowned lapwing moving about, and as you know, they frequent the open plains. They love it out here. There's quite a few of them. There must be about 20 of them or so. I did see a couple of Senegal lapwings too. Hello, yes, I'm talking about you. So if you could please show yourself, that would be fantastic. And they're very, very territorial, very protective over these areas. I'm surprised that they haven't started shouting at us, or perhaps even mobbing us. But for now, we seem to be okay, just running through the grass. Hello, little one. Aren't they lovely? They always look like they've got the longest legs. Well, they do have the longest legs, don't they? So a lot of you are saying that these birds are beautiful. They are indeed beautiful. But most of the birds out here, I'm actually trying to think off of the top of my head if we've got any birds that aren't particularly pretty. And the only ones that really jump to mind are the hardy-dars, the hardy-dar ibis. Now, I know that's very mean of me to say, but in terms of, well, falling out of the ugly tree, I think, unfortunately, the hardy-dar managed to hit every branch on the way down. But that's okay. And I suppose their voice doesn't make up for their bad looks either. Sorry, hardy-dars. But at least they've got a lovely long beak. I think that they must have some of the most impressive beaks up there with the hornbills. In terms of probing, I think they've got the longest. I'm just trying to think, because a hoopoe is obviously nowhere near as robust and long as a hardy-dars. And that goes for, of course, this hoopoe that we were looking at, and then of course the greenwood hoopoes, which we also get, or the scimitarbills, also again nowhere near as impressive. So I think the hardy-dar must take the cake when it comes to the finest probing bill, so they can win that award, and so that's fine. You can't win everything in life, but they definitely get those. And I think that the crowned lapwings get, after the hardy-dar, the noisiest. So there we go, hardy-dar wins 2 awards. They get the noisiest birds too. There's a fair competitors out here for birds that make a lot of noise. Now, Chris, you've said that these birds actually resemble the seagull, the crowned lapwings, and you won't believe it, I call them the bush seagulls, just as a joke, because they make such a noise when they fly around and mob you, when they are startled. They make an absolute racket. Should we hear? Let's play the call for you. I'm going to search for lapwing while you watch them run around. There's, like I said, there's an entire family of them here, all moving about, looking for something to eat. Lapwing with an L. I suppose that's what I've got to go to. And then we put the volume up. Yes, you're ready. You're ready to listen to the bush seagulls. Basically, bush seagulls, they sound like the seagulls from Finding Nemo when they all go mine, 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 but these ones are just sort of speaking. Listen. You see why? Look at what's just happened here. Look how territorial they are. The crowned lapwing is coming in very unhappy because some... Actually, can we look at the one on the left? Because I think there's going to be an argument between the two, between the blacksmith lapwing and the crowned lapwing. Look at this. Lowering itself down. Now, this is the position that a crowned lapwing will do when it is very unhappy. You can hear it chatting. The blacksmith lapwing doesn't look very bothered at all. And in terms of who's bigger, the blacksmith lapwing wins in weight. And really doesn't care at all, standing its ground, going, I'm just going to carry on eating. You can get all upset, but you're not flustering me at all. Now, it was a pair of them. And like I've told you many times, I've been bopped on the head by crowned lapwings. They're extremely territorial. They don't stand for anything. And sometimes it's not just one that will gang up on you. The entire flock will all get together and start sorting you out. Ah, well, that's a pity. I thought it was going to be a little bit more dramatic than that. I was hoping that the crowned lapwing was going to come on racing in. We might still see it, and chase off of the blacksmith lapwings, because I've even seen the crowned lapwings dive bombing at southern ground hornbills, actually right here on this open plain. So that was really, really quite wonderful. Thank you, bush seagull. Now,
on a piece of vegetation that is trying to make its home. We are going to return it back to the wilderness. It seemed to get a bit lost. Where did you find it, Craig?
Just outside the tent.
Just outside the tent on the ground. So it will be returned home, or hopefully as close to home as it can be. It's looking a little bit upset at the moment because it's managed to fall over of its own accord. I don't think it's very well. It was doing this when we found it. And it doesn't seem to be able to stand up straight unless we put it on the right side. Anyway, what I think is quite interesting is that you can see its metabolism going. You can see the abdomen, and if you look at it carefully, you can see it sort of moving. So it's obviously just had a little meal. Oh, it's eating now. It's found a little piece of Arathusa grass awn. It's eating that, or perhaps trying to take it home. We will release you, fear not, little termite. But whether you will find your way home to your colony of millions, I don't know. I fear me that your days as a functioning member of termite society might be over. Right, well, that was the termite. Very nice. Then, as has been my wont in the last little while, I found a little spider. I think it's a little jumping spider, but what we'll do is we'll microscope this one as well. It does keep trying to escape by suspending itself from a piece of silk, and then when it realizes it's not going anywhere, it climbs back up its silk and sits on the end of the leaf. Let's see if we can get it under the microscope without giving it too much of a freak out. It's moving. There we are. Look at the eyes at the front, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the jumping spiders. Now this thing is tiny. I mean, you saw the size of it. It's about 3, maybe 2.5 millimeters across, so 1/10 of an inch. And it also, like the enormous jumping spider we looked at yesterday, is much heavier leg-wise in the front than the back. And that's how I think they jump, and also what they use to subdue their prey before they bite them. And you see the eyes on the top there? So it'll have eyes in front and eyes on the top. And what I will try and do is just shift it slightly so that we can look. If you just come back to me, Megs. Let's just try and get a look at the eyes from front on as well. There we go. There we are. How cool is that? There you can see the eyes front on. It's definitely a jumping spider. And the eyes that you were looking at before are not the same as the eyes you're looking at now. The eyes you're looking at now are on the front, and it's not actually upside down. That's just the way I'm holding the microscope. It's actually standing perfectly upright, but that's quite nice. Quite like looking at it upside down. It's quite fun. Yeah, so that's little jumping spider living on the silver cluster leaf. How cool is that? Ah, yes, I agree, John. You see, I'm completely in agreement with you. You say it's not politically correct to call the invertebrates that we have out here creepy crawlies. You're right, it's just not politically correct. It's not done anymore. Beautiful. Right, now I believe that Taylor is still searching for birds. I'm going to do the same just outside the tent. Let's see if she has managed to have some success.
We're looking high, we're looking low, and I've just seen a bird land in the grass. Let's see if it's going to show itself. Who are we? Buffalo weavers, or are we fork-tailed drongos? No, we are buffalo weavers. There's one sitting in that little tree. It's just hopping about at the moment. They all keep dropping down into the long grass, so there must be something quite tasty. There it is, just moving about the bushes. Now, that is indeed... Is it? Yes, it is a red-billed buffalo weaver. For a moment I doubted myself, but then I saw the mottling of white feathers that they have about their body, their bright red legs, and of course where they get their name from, their red bill. And aren't they fantastic? Now, I have a nest, and most of you know this, in a... Oh my goodness, what tree is it called? Now I've completely forgotten. I can't even remember what type of acacia it is, but one of the acacias growing, fever tree, there we go. I forgot what it was for a second there, one of those outside my room, and there's a beautiful big buffalo weaver nest in it, and it's been so quiet. I have really missed the fond chattingness of all the buffalo weavers that are living in there, their chicks, the females, the males, you name it. They've been quite quiet, even when I turn my light on. That doesn't seem to get them going anymore. So I'm looking forward to the chattiness that will hopefully come back again as we start coming into the winter months. Everyone's going to be spending a lot of time in the nest, keeping nice and warm. I have a feeling, and now this is quite rare for me to say something like this, I think we're going to have maybe a nippy winter. I'm going to have to buy some gloves. I've got the scarf check. I'm going to have to get a little blankie like James has got. And hopefully we'll keep nice and warm for the safari. But as we were chatting earlier, the birds don't need any of that. They can stay in their nests if they'd like. Well, they're blessed with lovely, lovely, lovely warm feathers to keep them nice and cozy. Right, one down. We're actually doing pretty well, I think, in terms of birds, which is quite exciting. But we're going to keep on searching for some more and hopefully add a couple to the list. Maybe some special ones, who knows. However, Jamie is still sitting with the tallest animal in the world.
Our Cedar Point, very good question. You want to know how powerful a giraffe's kick is. Strong enough to kill a lion if it gets it in the right place. Now, that kick is unbelievably powerful. I know some people who made the mistake of trying to drive past a giraffe in close quarters, and they got kicked by said giraffe, and the entire front part of their windscreen was shattered, and the entire sort of supporting side arm was completely crumpled. And that's how tall they are as well, because that is no small feat. They're actually quite supple, and they can kick forwards and backwards. So predators had best beware if hunting a giraffe. They are not defenseless at all, and they do kick with a very, very powerful response if they're provoked. Now, there have been many recorded cases of a giraffe kick killing a predator. It does happen. The trick is to dodge it, of course, but if they kick a lion on the skull, that's it. Chances are that cat is not going to survive. I've actually been involved in a few giraffe captures before, which is a very tricky one, because you don't want to sedate the giraffe to the point that it actually falls down, because it can injure itself really badly. And what that means is that the vets have to get the exact dosage right of the sedative to the point that the giraffe can be caught, but it doesn't fall over and go to sleep. And it's a complex process involving some really strong men and some very thick ropes, once the giraffe is sedated. And that might sound cruel, but all of those situations have been situations where the intervention was happening due to the giraffe needing medical treatment thanks to people. So we always have a policy of non-interference, but in this particular case it was because the giraffe had found itself snared. And it's quite a process, let's just put it that way. And the trick with herbivores once they are sedated is to actually blindfold them. Blindfold them and block their ears, and in that way you really truly minimize the stress on that poor animal. Apple leaf, that won't be very nice. Milo, the zoo-loving scientist. How lovely to have you, Milo. I feel as though these live safaris truly gather together like-minded people. You want to know if giraffes are ever particularly aggressive? Not really, no. There are the odd cases where giraffes have attacked people. It's unusual. There's the famous video clip of one very confused field guide being chased by a giraffe. The most likely culprits in this situation where there is a little bit of aggression coming from a giraffe is what's known as a stink bull. So a mature giraffe bull, then the reason he's called a stink bull is because they start to secrete the same substance that makes human feces smell so terribly awful. You have to get quite close to smell it. It's subtle unless the wind blows it in your direction. But mature giraffe bull are probably the most likely candidates for that sort of aggression. Although, remember, calling an animal aggressive, I prefer not to use that term. Defensive, although I guess with a male there might be a degree of aggression involved. But for the most part, they're very placid, very peaceful animals that have absolutely no interest in doing us any damage. Oh, speaking of animals that I'm pretty sure are, if they weren't so small, would be full of aggression and would be plotting to take over the world, let's go over to James, who's found one in the tent.
Look at this absolutely magnificent example of Orthopteridae. That is a Theracles grasshopper. Yes, I have identified it. We don't know the species, but we know the genus. Shall I pull it down slightly, Craig? And it occurs in the book in exactly this form, which is so unusual. You've seen that?
Yeah.
And I don't know why he's on a tree. I've seen a few of them on trees before, I suppose. It's one of the first grasshoppers I ever learned. Jumped. There it is. Oh, there are two of them. There's a whole bevy. See, there's one, and there's the other one on the top, on the leaf there. You got it there.
Yeah, I got them.
Two Theracles grasshoppers. And I'm not sure what they're doing on this silver cluster leaf. Maybe that's what they eat. And I remember finding them once, but just when I'd bought the book that I found them in today, I remember going out. I was off one afternoon up north of here, and I went out into the bush to see what I could find. And I remember this was the very first insect that I identified using my new insect book. So we'll leave him there. Craig then said to me, "There's an albino here." And I shot around. I said, "An albino?" He said, "Well, it's a pale grasshopper." And it disappeared. Oh, there it is. See it there? Now, it's not so much an albino as it is disguised to look like winter grass, or I suppose much drier grass. Now, his origin and name, I'm afraid, I have yet to manage to find, but he is quite possibly something along the lines of, I found something quite similar, something along the lines of a grass mimicking grasshopper, which is supposed to be about, oh no, they're about 60 millimeters long. That's much too short. So that's not what it is. I don't know what it is. Anyway, he's rather special. And he's tiny and just sitting peacefully on a piece of grass. And there's something about grasshoppers I just really enjoy, because they don't bite. They're not going to inflict any kind of pain on you. And they're signifiers of fertility and kind of summer, I suppose. In this case, the last of the summer. And just if I'm very quiet for 2 seconds, maybe 10. Might just push here. And they're all over the place. In fact, I can see the ones that are calling. Let's see if they carry on. They're calling all over here. I think it's these ones, Craig. You see this one here? Let me get out of your way. Oh, it's jumped. Here it is. There. Just in there. Can you see it? They're moving. At the back? There. Let me move. See, as soon as you cover these things in a shadow, they think they're about to be taken and they jump. There it is. You see it there, where my finger is? Oh, he's caught. He just escaped. Did you see that? I think you might have missed it. He jumped onto a spider's web and then shook violently and managed to escape. That was a very near thing. And he jumped actually onto the spider. Can you see the spider?
Yeah, I can see the spider.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm going to be very sad when we go into winter and all of this life has passed on and laid its eggs. And we'll have to wait for next summer before it all happens again. Alrighty, I believe that Pyjamas Patterson is still with her giraffe and she's not leaving it for love nor money.
I'm not going anywhere, since we have got a wonderful big creature on camera, and it's one that we don't always get to see. I think it's worth spending a bit of extra time with them. And it's nice because often we're rushing somewhere and we see giraffe as a brief moment in time, but actually this is a really lovely opportunity for especially new viewers, but that doesn't mean I'm excluding our regular viewers as well, to send through questions that have been pressing on your minds about giraffe and the way in which they function. Just quickly, we've been watching both of them feed with their heads down. That is a very sort of contracted position for them. Their natural resting position is with their heads up. Oh, and speaking of giraffe questions, Naveen, you want to know, is there any reason for giraffe horns to be small? Yes, because in order to utilize them, okay, let's talk about why animals have horns. Animals have horns because males fight with other males, or animals have horns because it's a defense against predators. Those are pretty much the two reasons why you would have horns. Now, in the case of male giraffe, the way that they fight each other is by swinging their heads around and whacking their opponents with their ossicones. They're not actually technically horns, they're ossicones, and I'll explain the difference in a bit. But by whacking their opponents on the sides or on the neck or on the buttocks with their relatively small horns, because having larger horns they could actually just break with that impact. Nice short stubby ossicones is the way forward. Having long antlers, or not antlers, sorry, excuse me, long horns like a kudu would be hugely, well, it wouldn't really work. And then for the females, well, they don't really fight for access to mates, and really, if it comes down to it, if a predator's attacking them, they're really going to be using their feet rather than their ossicones to defend themselves. And just quickly, the difference between horns and ossicones, both are bone, so there is that to them, there is a similarity. The difference being that baby giraffe are born with their ossicones. I guess another reason for them to be quite small, poor mum. But they're born with them loose and very, very cartilaginous, made up of cartilage, you know what I mean. And they lie flat against the baby's head. And then within the first few weeks of life, they pop up, and then they start to solidify and calcify and become solid bone. So that's the difference. Whereas horns grow up from a growth plate, and the antelope are not born with their horns. They grow them as they get older. And in male giraffe, it's actually not just their ossicones that become a sort of a weapon. They actually have very prominent bumps in between their eyes, on their foreheads, and two basically extensions of the skull behind the ossicones, two protrusions. You can sort of see them on the female, but not nearly as clearly. In the males, as they get older and reach maturity, those become more and more developed and harder and more calcified, and they become an even more effective weapon. And really, most of the impact that happens is the strength of the giraffe's neck swinging and smacking the side of their opponent. And that's the momentum and the muscles and the weight of their skull. Now, Chris, you want to know, is it only prey animals that have horns? Yes, essentially. Because horns, as we've said, is either a defense from predators or it is for competition for mates. In the case of predators, well, they can fight with teeth and claws if they need to compete with another male for a female. I can't think of any predators that have horns. It is a strange image. I've got this image of one of the Birmingham boys with fake antlers applied to his head, but that's definitely not going to happen in the wild. The only thing I can really add to that is say that there are some types of duiker that are predominantly herbivores, but they do occasionally hunt things. And by hunt things, I mean they eat birds, they catch birds, and they eat birds' eggs and so on. It's quite unusual, but it does happen. I guess that's one example where you might have a prey species with horns that, or I mean a predator that eat with horns, but I wouldn't really count them as predators. So yes, horns are a predominantly prey species thing. I can't think of another example. No, that's it. Tusks, of course, also very similar. Warthog tusks, elephant tusks, competition for mates and defense. Same goes for rhino horn as well. Rhino's horns, slightly different approach in that they're symmetrical along the, I'm going to get my ventral surfaces mixed up. You know what I mean? They're one behind the other as opposed to one next to each other. A slightly different approach that evolution has taken, but essentially for the same reason and the same principles. Look at the way this baby giraffe's closing its eyes to protect itself from thorns. Since I've stolen the big animals this morning, I think Taylor's still on her search for feathered creatures. Let's go see how that's going.
And you won't believe it, I just managed to find birds too. They're just sitting up top over there, just on the dead tree that's poking through the guarri bushes. And they are 2 turtle doves by the looks of it. I shall tell you when we get a bit closer, it's a little bit difficult to see. Are they turtle doves or are they laughing doves? Can we please zoom in a little bit closer so I can have a look and see exactly what they are? Wonderful. They look like maybe laughing doves. Well, that one's a strange one. That one hasn't got any markings on at all. No, I think they were turtle doves. This is quite interesting because it doesn't seem to have a marking around it, but they looked a little bit too big to be a laughing dove. I'm also looking at my monitor and how dirty it is. I'm now wiping it. You can watch me wipe my monitor. Get the cloth. That is no good. I couldn't even see what I was looking at. Wipe, wipe, wipe. Get away, dust. There we go. Dust is now gone, and now I've now pressed a button. Now I cannot see anything. Now I just hopefully press all the buttons until it goes away. Okay, we'll figure that out in a moment. Let's go find those doves again. I couldn't see what they were. There was so much glare and so much dust on my screen. But just from their size, but then I couldn't very clearly see a collar. And we know the laughing doves don't have a black collar around the neck like the red-eyed doves and the turtle doves do. So it must have been a laughing dove, but very big ones. Let's see if we can find some more. There's typically loads and loads and loads of doves around here. We've got some babblers that just flew across. There they go. Let's see if one is going to land for us. Let me go a bit further forward, but just up in this bush willow, you'll have to be quick. There is an arrow-marked babbler. Just sitting up there. Looks like it wants to fly, and I think it will. There we go. Starting to fly. But of course, as you know, the arrow-marked babblers, of course, they don't hang around for too long. But we're just sort of seeing quick glimpses of birds now. But we have spotted somebody else. I can see a Jamie and a Senzo. Should we wait for them? Yes. Let's wait for Jamie and Senzo. They're just about to come through here. They've just gone over the damn wall now. Rusty's very quiet this morning. Very, very quiet. Here they come. Or Jamie just drive very carefully. That's probably the truth too. Ah, and you can also see Rollo, who is sitting on the back of a car. I've cornered you. There's no getting away from me this morning. I saw you try and make a duck for it there.
Fancy meeting you.
I know, what an
coincidence.
absolute, what a surprise.
I have to laugh. Megan says to me as I come around the corner and you're sitting right there, she goes, "We've got visual of you."
Yes, this is always quite entertaining. Have you seen any interesting birds?
Have we seen any interesting birds? Not that you haven't. Let's put it that way. I did have the ground hornbills. They were nice.
They were very nice. We had a few too, but they didn't hang around for too long. We saw them very quickly, and then as you guys linked to us with the commotion of us not having any communication, they did onto the open area and then turned and flew into Nyala, and I was so sad watching them fly away.
We've been lucky today. I think it's because I'm wearing my lucky socks.
Let's see your lucky
I'm wearing my lucky socks. That's what I've been doing wrong. I haven't been wearing my lucky socks.
Oh wow!
My only remaining pair of socks. Those are my lucky ones.
Well, you better keep wearing them. No washing Jamie's socks.
I know. Sorry about this.
Not allowed to go to laundry. Maybe that's why the wild dogs came about. They came searching for.
They were my lucky socks on this morning. I smelled it. I did.
There we go. Probably smelled it. Wonderful. Okay, I'll leave you. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
Great number of options.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna go and see if I can get a bird. Okay. Right, let's carry on and see if we can get a bird. That explains Jamie's luck. It's her socks. No, but I've seen some in Nyala. Let's go and have a look at the Nyala. They're coming down into the drainage line. Oh, two beautiful bulls. This is going to be spectacular. You may even see them on the dam cam too. I'm just trying to think. Let's go around. Let's have a look at them. And you can just see them just off over there. And it's not uncommon to see male and Nyala hanging around together. We normally see this actually quite often. It's, I suppose, the same thing goes with the impala, with the rams. They do form bachelor herds. These two boys are beautiful. The one on the right, on the left-hand side, looks slightly bigger. His horn shape just looks a little bit nicer. I think the one on the right is a little bit younger, but beautiful coats as well. Look how they're shining in this morning sun. Isn't that spectacular? All smooth coats, no more fluffed up coats because it has warmed up. Indeed, it's not cold at all now, and as I say that, they start to disappear. Hopefully they're going to pop out on the other side of the tree. Don't pause, keep going. There they both come. And it's one of my favorite things to watch in Nyala bulls. Actually, both of them don't look completely fully grown. Just looking at them, they look a bit scraggly, don't you think? Especially around the necks. You can see the manes haven't quite developed not the manes, the beards haven't quite developed too well. So they're big, but I reckon that they could probably put on a bit more muscle. And then they will look absolutely lovely, like the kudu bulls at the moment. They're looking so spectacular. But what I wanted to say was there's nothing quite like watching a dominance display between Nyala bulls. It is really spectacular. We don't often get to see a proper display too. Normally, when they just bump into each other, you'll see them, erecting all the hair on their body, but it's so quick. But if you have had the opportunity to sit and watch a display, it can take quite a long time. But it is really, really quite spectacular. And boys, you don't seem too bothered though, so they'll be quite happy living together, being relatively young, not particularly old, keeping an eye out for each other. And there's something at the back. Oh, it was a squirrel. Did you guys all see that other squirrel? I think that's what caught the Nyala's attention. It was just in the distance. It popped up, but then the squirrel ran away. I just saw its tail dive down into the grass, and any rustling of leaves or grass will definitely alert those in Nyala, because it could be something like a leopard or a lion, even a hyena moving around in the long grass, so they want to stay as alert as they can. But of course, having a squirrel around is sometimes good, because they'll alarm, or they can cause false alarms, because they'll alarm for snakes, they'll alarm for big birds of prey, and an Nyala does not need to worry about any of those things unless it's a really, really big python. James is still in the tent. He hasn't gone anywhere just yet. I'm not sure what he has, but I'm sure it'll make you laugh.
I don't know if it'll make you laugh. It isn't mantis, but it's proving quite difficult to make sit still. I don't know why I'm whispering. I'm not sure that it can hear me. Oh, hang on. Oh, where are you, beastly creature? There we are. There, she's settled down and she's washing her front feet. Isn't that amazing? Look at her eyes. She looks like a sort of caramel chocolate you might like to eat. She is beautiful. Sorry about that. She's moved again. I'll try and get one more picture of her. Settle, my dear, settle. You will be released. Just sing yourself a Paul Robeson classic and you'll be all right. There we go. She knows she's being watched. You saw her cock her head like that. And look at her mouth parts. Ooh. It'll give many people the absolute heebie-jeebies. Let me just try and get in on her eyes. There. Look at those eyes. They just scream life to you, don't they? And of course she's quite terrifying to male mantids, mantidae. Right, she's gone again. Okay, so that's our little mantis. She's not very big. You can see her there in our little observation box. Yes, very nice. So, an inch or so long. Then, there's this beautiful little beetle, which is now finally sat still. Megan, you're going to have to be quick, as I'm going to have to be quick. No, sorry. Sorry. Let me just try and get this fellow. No, he keeps moving. Sorry. And I can't. Let's try once more. There we go. There you can see him. Look. Isn't that cool? Now he's tiny, and we found him on some grass, and he's now leaving. There he is. Tiny little beetle. I don't know what he is. And I'll tell you that the mantis with a sort of floppy-tailed mantis we'll call it, is not in the book either. But this beetle I haven't yet found. I'm going to have a look for him now. That's very cool. So he can go onto this grass stalk. And as with many of the flowers, some of the grasses are giving their sort of last hurrah. And this piece of panicum is doing that. You can see it's flowering very, very late in the season. But because it's sort of protected in the lee of the tent, I don't think, I think a lot of animals stay away from here. And because of that, it's managed to stay sort of unmolested, if you like, and now it's producing some flowers. And the seeds will mature, and then they will be cast to the autumn winds. Very nice. Okay, I believe that Jamie is not with the giraffe anymore, and that is something of a relief, because I'm sure the giraffe was, well, the giraffe, they get very shy. They get very shy. And she's somewhere around where I was hearing alarm calls this morning.
A roundabout. Whereabouts did James hear those alarm calls? Because I heard alarm calls earlier. Oh, was it earlier this morning with the dogs time-ish? Galagopan-ish. I've checked around Galagopan. I haven't picked up on anything around there. I'm not sure what was alarm calling, but I haven't picked up on any tracks or anything like that. We have had a pretty epic morning though. I'm now driving really slowly to make up for the fact that I tried to launch Sensor and Rollo off my vehicle at the same time with the wild dogs. I kind of figure if I drive really, really super gently, it'll make up for all the damage that I've done to them. Injuries to joints, and poor back's probably feeling it, or will in a few hours. That's really cool. Let me try and get the light right so I can show you this. This fungus is basically gold. Looks like somebody's come and sprayed gold dust on it. Look at that. In this morning light, it's shining. Massive fungus, one of the ones that I know that Speke's hinged tortoises absolutely love. And I know that because I've seen them feeding off them. But doesn't that look like it's been dusted in gold dust? It reminds me of my mum when she used to make chocolates and pour them into molds and then paint them with that edible gold glitter. I'm definitely not eating that though. That doesn't look edible at all. In fact, I would suggest any fungus, unless you are an expert in mushrooms, I would suggest staying well away from. I've seen these grow to about double this size, about this big, before. It makes a very good snack. I don't know what it's called. I don't know if maybe James knows what it's called. But this was not here, definitely not here 3 days ago. It always amazes me how fast a fungus will grow. It feels like, actually feels like elephant skin or rhino skin. I can't get over the shine to it though. It's actually I should probably wash my hands after that. It's actually a sort of a yellow color, but with this morning light, it's positively glowing. It's the unexpected pretty things. Megs, once I hop in the car, you have to wait for a sec to me. James, it isn't near a termite. Oh, well, I suppose there's a termite mound over there. It is a gold mushroom, and it is sort of near a termite mound. There's a termite mound within about 8 meters of it that's been developing around the roots of a fallen tree. Does that count? It's not really near anything else, though. It's just right next to the road and the open clearings. Google image search helps a little bit as well. When you can plug it in and search for the image, that might not be a bad idea if you could let me know on #SafariLive on Twitter. Right, we've been doing birds. Since there's a bird here, I feel as though it is a suitable thing to stop at. A collection of crowned lapwings. As always, making their harsh, raucous squawking sound. Or screeching sound, I think would probably be a better description. There they are, dashing about on their long limbs. I think we're outside of crowned lapwing breeding season. But you never know. I could be wrong about that. They might have been having they might have laid a late clutch of eggs. They are ground nesting birds, and it's very difficult to find their nests. But if they did have a nest here, I would say they would be slightly more frantic and aggressive about us driving around this area. They'd be squawking at us. Or one of them might even pretend to have a broken wing as a way of distracting everybody else. Or any predators. The bane of my childhood existence when I was walking my dog. And dive bomb us both whenever we walked across a field. Cool. So there we go. Finishing off a morning with birds, or at least from my side. It has been really truly special. Wild dogs racing across, hyenas racing across quarantine. I think we should sit on quarantine clearings more often. Just wait for the animals to come to us. I'll just have to keep wearing my lucky socks and it'll work. On that note, Taylor's had lots of birding practice this morning. I think we should head across to her for the last few minutes to enjoy some bird reading.
We're still looking for our birds and who we can add to our list. I'm trying to think. We haven't seen the yellow-billed hornbill yet. I think you may have seen it with no, you saw African grey hornbills with Jamie. But let's keep seeing if we can't find someone else. There was also a Burchell's starling hanging around, but every time we stop to have a look at it, it flies away. No surprise there, as that's what the birds love to do most. Right, let's have a look over here. Impala, are you going to entertain us for a few minutes? Yes, I think that they could entertain us for a couple of minutes. There's a lot of them. There's actually a lot of action going on at the moment on quarantine. And you can imagine there's some really big rams coming in now to an adult, and then her youngster who's just hanging at the back. The little one you can see not quite old enough to mate just yet. It'll be another year and a half, maybe 2 years, but they are bounding about. Now, Douglas, you're wondering what the gestation period for a female impala is? For the life of me, I can't remember, but I think it's around 6 months or so, somewhere around there, give or take a little bit. I'll have to check exactly what it is. So they should start breeding soon. Well, the proper mating, exhibition should start soon. But it's really, really funny in quarantine. What I did want to tell you is that there are actually, at the moment, and particularly this morning, there are more rams around than there are ewes. So I don't know where they've gone, whether they've been frightened off. But I'm sure that they will be back again. A lot of these young boys, who are probably about 2 years old now, hanging about, you know, sort of testing the females to see if they're coming into estrus as well. And that's very, very risky, especially when you've got big, beautiful rams like the one that's just here on the right, just in front of the car, who's actually using the luxury facilities at the moment. There it is, just over there. Let's have a look at this guy very, very quickly. He is absolutely beautiful, and as he walks away, I suppose we are unfortunately running out of time with you this morning, but I hope that you've enjoyed the safari from wild dogs to do different family groups of southern ground hornbills, lots of birds, little lizards, and all sorts of creepy crawlies from James and the tent. But thank you everybody for everything that you do for us, and we hope you enjoyed it, and of course we'll see you for the sunset safari a little bit later.